Okay, so in the previous video we talked about the purpose of the scan. We said scanning should only be used when we want the actual one number that we should be analyzing our data with. Okay, so that means I've put my sample, or at least one of them, into the machine. I've scanned a window. For this one it was 350 to 800. I didn't know where this number was going to be. That's the purpose of the scan. After I scanned my sample, this graph showed up on the computer screen, and this graph is telling me, okay, the maxima here is 529. That is where my hump is the tallest, and that is where my sample is the most sensitive. So that means from this point on, I need to be looking at my samples only at 529. Again, keep it consistent. You'll get better data. You'll get better results if you do. If I wanted to print this off, I could. The only thing that I have to do is go up here and click the print button, right? There's only 3 buttons up there at the top. So I can hit the print, and this will automatically signal it to print off on our printers in the laboratory. You don't even have to choose the printer that it goes to. You just hit the print button and call it a day, right? Okay, so I don't really want to do anything with this else. On the print off, I will see my spectra. I will also see the maxima and the absorbance down here listed as well. So I want to go into the software now and actually tell it to only look for one number and one number only. So how do I do that from this screen? Well, it's very easy. The only thing that you have to do is go up here to File, and then here it's going to say New Method, Open Method, Save Method, Show Method, Load a Spectrum, Save a Spectrum, Print, Print Preview, Print Setup, Change the Application, and Exit. Alright, well these are methods. I told you not to worry about those. This is saving my spectra and loading up a previous spectrum from somebody else that maybe ran it before me. So if I do want to save them, I have that option. Print, I showed you the shortcut to the print button. It was right there on the main screen. And what we want to go into is change application. So right now we're in the scanning feature. So we'll click change the application. And it says, do you want to change or do you want to save the changes? You can hit no. I don't want to save anything, right? It's kind of silly. It was very simple for me to set up, so I don't need to save anything at all. Now it's going to take me back to this Vision Light software screen from the very beginning. And this time I want to go into the fixed application. Fixed means you want it to fixate on one number and one number only, right? You want it to madly fall in love with 1 nanometer, and that's it. Don't give it a choice. So that's what the fixed function is. So click fixed and click OK, and then the software will reboot itself, and this time it will say this is the fixed option that we have available to you instead of the scan. Now what you'll see is a different type of screen. It doesn't give me all of these choices over here to the left anymore. The method is, again, unnecessary. Don't do anything there. The mode is wavelength. That's what we're measuring. We're going to type in 525 or 529 nanometers. So that nanometer is a wavelength. And that wavelength is going to be typed in right here in this box. So 529. Click the box and just type over the number that's already there. Wavelength number 2, though, we only have one wavelength that we want to measure. It does give me the option to measure more than one, but it's not necessary. So I'll just clear that out. Do not type in a 0. If you type in a 0, this error message is going to pop up, and it's going to say, we're sorry, we can't go below 190. Well, that means you can't measure 0 nanometers of wavelength, right? So it's saying I can't go below 190. You're going to have to type it in again. That's why you do not put 0 there. You just clear out the number and leave it blank. That way the software understands to only look for 1, and that 1 is 529 nanometers. The measurement mode is going to be absorbance. The advanced parameters, again, that's a silly box that we don't need to go into. And the advanced options, again, it's a silly box that I don't need to go into. So I'll hit cancel from that point on. The process is still the same as the fixed, though. I want to go in and I want to auto zero first. So make sure that your blank is in the B carousel spot, and then if it is, you hit auto zero. It's not going to take as long to do the job. So what you saw, it's already done. What you saw it do is go up here to 525 nanometers, and then it blanked out 525 nanometers only. It didn't have to go through that window of numbers that you gave it, which is why it's much quicker. It only looks for one number and one number only. So 529. That says 0.000, and that's good. That's what I want it to do. And now I'm ready to run my actual samples. Okay, so what I'll do is that I'm going to load up 3 or 4 different samples so I can show you how to analyze more than one at a time. And then we'll talk about what to do with that data from that point on. Okay, so if we go up here to measure samples, this box will pop up again. This time, though, it will want you to name this data set that you're getting ready to analyze. If you don't put some kind of name here, it's going to kick back an error. So I'm just going to put my initials, and I'm just going to put test run. It's not going to really save for me. It's going to delete itself. So you know, it's no big deal whatever you name it there. Who cares? Because it's not going to be on the computer after we shut it down anyway. So again, we see this measure blank, and this is checked, which means it's automatically going to measure the blank again just to be safe. It's better safe to be than sorry, right? And then it's going to give me spot 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to say, okay, this is TH test run 2 or test run 1. And this is my test run number 2, and this is my test run number 3. So I've got 3 samples loaded up into the machine. I can name them anything that I want to name them because this is how they're going to print off on my report. So if no one else can interpret what you've done, as long as you know what you've done, that's all that matters really. And then I'm going to go through and I'll hit measure. So when I hit measure, it's only going to look at 529. It's blanking right now, and now it's going to go to each one of my samples, and there is my first absorbance, and there's the absorbance for my second one, and there's the absorbance for my third one. And now I'm finished. So you see how quick this process really is. The sample preparation for the UV Vis Lab Practical will be longer, much longer, than the actual analysis part itself. You saw that it only took a couple of seconds for it to scan through 3 samples. And you know, quite honestly, you're probably not going to have any more than 5 to 7 samples to actually run. Now, what if I have more than 5? Well, my advice would be to load them up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, hit measure, and then when you do that, this box will come back up just like it did. And then I'm going to go through, I'm going to take my samples out of the carousel, put the new ones in that I want to measure now, and continue on this path of naming it, measuring it. It will pop up on the same computer screen, and then you just print the data off in the very end. Okay, so I've only had 3 samples here, so I'm finished. I'll hit close because I'm done. And now here are my absorbances. So test run sample 1 was a 0.055 absorbance. My sample number 2 was a 0.130 absorbance. And my sample number 3 was a 0.173 absorbance. All right, so if I want it to print this data off, the same thing happens here, right? I go up to the top and I hit print, and it automatically triggers it to the right printer, and now my data is ready for me to be picked up. So the next question is, what do I do with the data now that I have it in my hands, right? So here are 3 samples that I have analyzed, and what do these absorbances really mean to me? What do I need to do with them mathematically in order to make this all make sense? So that's what we're going to talk about in the next set of videos when we talk about the data calculation portion and the calibration curve portion. But software-wise, This is it, folks. It doesn't really get simpler than this when it concerns an instrument in our laboratory. Couple of buttons only. Auto zero for a blank, measure samples when you want to measure your samples, and print to print your data off. Again, the method is not used. The mode is always wavelength, and I go in and I type in the wavelength that I'm looking for. But you've got to keep in mind you only should be looking at 1 nanometer when you do your data analysis portion of the competition. Scanning is used to figure out what this number should be. So, honestly, what will happen is that we'll bring you into our lab, we'll give you a sample, and we'll say scan it in this window. When you find your lambda max, make your measurements according to the lambda max. So you'll scan it first, just like we did in the video series. Once you find that number, we then go into the fixed category and we type in that wavelength to analyze the samples with. All right, so again, if I've got more than 5, it will do the first 5 for me and it will put a pause on the screen. It will allow me to exchange those out. I just add new names to them and I hit measure all over again, and it will continue on, so that way they're all on the same sheet of paper for me. And then I can print it off in the very end. Okay, so once you're finished with the software and the instrument, what's the proper shutdown method? Well, again, this can't get any easier. You'll go up to File, and then you'll go down to Exit. And it says, do you want to save the changes you made to the method? You can hit no. We don't want to save any changes at all. No big deal. It didn't take very long to get that data anyway. And the software screen will shut down and it will take me back to my desktop on the computer. And that's all there is to the software. So not a horrendous bunch of buttons or batch tables or anything else that I need to worry with when it concerns some of this other software and some of the other equipment that's in our laboratory. So Vision Lite, that's why they call it Lite. It's the light version, the easy version of what this instrument can do. And that's why we like it as well, because anything easy and simple makes our job much easier and simpler throughout the day. So in the next set of videos, there won't be very many, but we'll talk about what we'll do with that data that we get from the machine. And we'll use some of these numbers in order to do that with. So stay tuned. You've got part 3 coming up. So now you know a little bit about the instrument theory-wise. Now you know a little bit about the software screen, and now we've got to talk about what to do with the data and maybe some of the pieces and parts on the equipment as well. So stay tuned. There's still more to come.